Christmas DIYs don't have to be complicated or require a lot of supplies. I have several ideas for you guys today that are easy and come together quickly. Thank you for stopping by Lavender and Lace. I'm Alicia. Welcome back to my viewers that come and see me each week, and hello if you are new here. Please give today's video a thumbs up and let's get started with these Christmas DIYs. I found these large cutting board signs at Dollar Tree, and of course this was a couple of years ago before they had their price increase on everything. So I just removed all of the labels from this, and I'm going to be using the back side of this piece. This will be a double-sided piece, and I just removed that hanger as well and just set that aside because I will be adding that back to be able to hang this. And I just taped off a small area on the top. I didn't want to do a lot of red for this, but I did want just a little bit so this would match all of my other Christmas decor. And I used my crimson colored chalk paint from Waverly and just did the handle portion on the top, and this did take 2 coats. And for the bottom part of my sign, I took my plastered colored chalk paint from Waverly and did 2 coats of that as well. And you could do whatever colors that you wanted to. I just needed a neutral background for the way I'm going to be applying my design for this project. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to see what I have created. And once my paint was dry, I did put a thin layer of Mod Podge all over my entire sign, and you want to let this dry completely. If you guys have watched my videos, you probably know where I'm going with this. And I opted to do the tissue paper method. That is just one of the easiest ways that I have found to add a custom design to a piece, especially if you don't have a stencil or like a chalk couture transfer or something like that. And I wanted to personalize this. This wasn't an image or a design that I could find anywhere. So I went into Canva and created this. I'm using one of my granny's recipes that we always made at Christmas time. So this is something that I created, and this is a very special piece and something that I enjoy having in my kitchen around the holidays. So you could put whatever recipe or design that you want on your piece and personalize it to match your decor, or just as a special memory from recipes that you made with maybe your grandmother or your mom or something like that. And just to attach that, I just used my little mini press and a Teflon sheet and ironed that on. That just reactivated that Mod Podge, and I always like to make sure that I have everything attached well before I seal this in. And just to remove all of that excess tissue paper, I used my fingernail file and went around all of the edges just to get all of that removed. And I did just lightly distress those bottom corners as well for my sign because I like the rustic decor in my home. You could totally skip that step if you want to. And then just to seal in my design, I did another thin coat of Mod Podge and let that dry completely. And I did reattach my jute twine hanger. I just didn't show you guys that, but I love how this one turned out, and it is very special to me because we made these every year at Christmas time with my granny, and I just continue that tradition with my kids and hopefully my grandkids one day. What do you guys think about this one? So I have accumulated quite a bit of wood houses and wood pieces in my stash, so I wanted to use all of those and make some really beautiful decor. So I started with just this wooden piece that you can get from the Dollar Tree, and I stained that with my antique wax from Waverly. Just removed any of that excess wax with a paper towel, and I did let that dry completely while I was working on the rest of my project. And I also stained that larger piece as well. And I had several different houses and different shaped items in my stash that I wanted to use for this. So I pulled out 5 of those and started working on each one. And I also pulled out several different colors of chalk paint. So for this little half circle one, I started by just painting that center portion with my crimson chalk paint from Waverly. And that did take 2 or 3 coats. I can't remember which one. And then I painted this one with my plaster colored chalk paint. That took 2 coats as well. And then I did the roof in the black. And for the chalkboard house, I did just do a little bit of distressing on the chimney portion of that one. And I'm going to be using several different things to put my designs on each of my houses. I had this set of transfers from Couture, and I picked this one up several years ago, so it's not available currently. So I just fuzzed that on my towel and placed that where I wanted it on my house. And if you don't have any stencils like this from Chalk Couture, you could use something that you find on Amazon or create a stencil and cut that out of vinyl. Just whatever that you have on hand that would be the easiest for you for this project. And I used my squeegee and my red chalk paste and just put the design on this house. And when you are working with these transfers from Chalk Couture, you don't want to use a whole lot of that paste, otherwise it will kind of bleed underneath your design. So I start with a small amount and then just add more if I need to, and then you'll want to squeegee off that excess. And then before it dries, you will want to remove your transfer, and then you will want to immediately wash that transfer just so you get all of that chalk paste removed and your transfer will last a little bit longer. And I also decided to use one of my smaller ones with this circle house, and it did tear up some of that paint because I painted over paper. I should have sanded that off, but that was just an easy fix. Just touch that up with some more of that paint. And I also have this Christmas scrapbook pack, and I believe this one came from Michael's several years ago. I picked it up when it was on sale. So I just flipped through that and picked one that I thought would coordinate well with all of the other designs that I'm using for all of my different houses. And I just traced out the size that I would need, and then I like to use an Elmer's glue stick when I'm working with scrapbook paper. I think it applies really well, and I don't have any kind of glue ridges or a lot underneath the paper. And I also picked out another piece of that scrapbook paper from that same pack, and I just pressed that down firmly over the top of this little chalkboard house, and that just gave me all of the lines that I would need to cut that out. And I did have to trim it just a little bit to get it to fit in the center portion of that house. And of course, I used my glue stick as well for that one. And I also have these rub-on transfers, and this was a pack that I got from Amazon. Be sure that you check the description box, and I will link everything that I can there for you to check out. So I just picked out the one that I liked the best for this, and this house I didn't do anything else to. I thought it would be pretty just to leave that natural wood color and add this rub-on transfer, and these are super easy to work with. They are very sticky, so sometimes that backing piece is just a little bit hard to pull up. And I wanted to add a few little simple embellishments to my little red half circle sign. So I painted one of my wooden snowflakes with my white chalk paint. And then I just took the tip of my paintbrush and added some little snowflakes and dots to that sign as well. And then I just glued those snowflakes that I had painted wherever I thought they looked the best. Just used some hot glue for that. And for a little embellishment on my smallest house, I just took some jute twine and wrapped that around the bottom several times and just attached that on the back with some hot glue. You could do whatever that you have in your stash. That is the beauty of DIYing and crafting. You can use whatever that you have and make these fit your style and your decor. So I just played around with the placement of these before I glued them down. This is going to be two pieces with those wood pieces that I used. One is a little taller than the other, so I glued my larger houses on the top. I just used some wood glue super glue and some hot glue to do that. And then I did the same thing with my three smaller houses on the front, and this one is finished. I love the way that this one turned out, you guys. It was a great way to use up a lot of those houses and just some different shapes and wood pieces that I had in my stash. But I think this one turned out absolutely gorgeous. These mini wooden charcuterie boards that you can get from Hobby Lobby are perfect blanks for projects. And of course, this one will be a Christmas. I have done a fall one as well. So I like to pick these up and have them in my stash. These are just perfect little small pieces that you can do a quick project with. So I just taped off that bottom section, and I wanted to have kind of a rusty red color, not the bright red that you typically see for Christmas. So I just took a couple of different colors of paint and mixed those until I was happy with the color. I painted that bottom portion as well as the sides and the bottom of my mini charcuterie board. And I wanted to distress that paint just a little bit, so I used my sanding block and went around all of the edges very lightly. And I had several odds and ends of things that I wanted to use to embellish this. I had some of these white pit berries, and you can find these usually at Dollar Tree or Hobby Lobby. Sometimes I like to just pick them up from Hobby Lobby because you get more and you can find those on sale. So I just made a small wreath with some of those pit berries and just glued that on the top of my little mini charcuterie board with some hot glue. And I also had some of this sparkle. I can't remember if this was like a eucalyptus on here, but I did pick that one up from Walmart. And I hate glitter. I hate glitter, you guys. This was getting everywhere while I was working on this project, but I thought this piece needed just a little bit of sparkle. So I just cut down some very small pieces and glued those on top of my wreath. And I tried to get as much of that glitter off as I could before I glued my letter tiles down. I just spelled out Farm Fresh, and I started with my center letter on the word fresh and just continued adding all of my letters until I had each one added to my little cutting board. And I had several of these Christmas wooden shapes in a pack. These came from Hobby Lobby as well. And I just used some of my markers to color these. These weren't paint markers. These were just Sharpies that I had. And I colored my truck red. And I also used a gray and a black to color my wheels. If you have paint markers, you could use those as well. Again, just use whatever that you have on hand. And I just took a little bit of hot glue and added that to the center on the bottom of my cutting board. And I took just a small piece of jute and made a very simple shoelace bow and glued that to the top of my wreath. Just a little bit of added embellishment and cuteness for my sign. And that is it for this project. This one is great for a tier tray or somewhere that you have a need to put smaller items and just give a little bit of extra Christmas decoration. What do you guys think about this one? Thank you guys for watching the video today. I hope you enjoyed these projects. Please let me know which one is your favorite in the comments. I always enjoy reading all of those from you guys. And I hope you're feeling inspired to look through your craft supplies and see what you can create with things that you already have on hand. If you're looking for more Christmas DIY inspiration, here's some more videos that you might enjoy. I hope you will consider subscribing if you haven't done so already. Have a blessed day, and I will see you in the next one.